Hi, it's Wednesday morning and I'm in Wolvercote, having just passed the St Peter's Church, which is up there, and I'm going to walk down to the plough across the little green and onto the canal. This is where I've left the canal in previous videos, but this time I'm going to start the canal here and go further north. I started the video from this street because it's quite pretty. I really ought to get a gift from the Wolvercote Estate Agents Association for this. That's the plough. From the car park end. Not that people seem to worry too much about where to park around here. That's the meadow with its hay ricks. Now going towards the canal. That's the plough, and there's a range of toys, playthings. Now that is a bit misleading because I'm actually in Wolvercote, but it does extend further north. That's Whiteham Woods over in the distance. And what I'm going to do today, if my battery holds out, is to walk the canal further north than I've done before and walk to Kidlington, which is the next settlement in the Banbury direction after Oxf'd. Strictly speaking, I'm not quite in the Banbury direction now. I'm more sort of in the Woodstock direction, but it doesn't make that much difference here. And the reason I was a bit careful about saying settlement is that Kidlington has about 13,000 or 13,500 inhabitants, but it still calls itself a village. Depending on what you read, it's either the first or the second biggest village in I can't remember whether it's England or the UK. And it has been proposed at least once that it should be reclassified as a town, but the parish council don't seem to like that idea. And getting to Kidlington this way is an easy walk up the canal. It's more or less straight. And I'll point off other footpaths and places to go. That is the bridge carrying what I think is called the Godstow Road. It's the road that runs along the northern edge of Port Meadow. And it's the main road into Lower Wolvercote. A little tiny bit to the west of here, there's the community pub called the White Hart, and a triangle of green space for children to play on, and a gastro pub called Jacob's Inn. And then a jog in the road, some cottages of various styles, including at least one thatched, and then a humpback bridge, and then a little bit of road to the Trout, the Inspector Morse pub, and also to Wolvercote Apple Orchard. And if you continue along the same road further past the Trout, you eventually get to Whiteham. That's a bit greedy. I mean, ducks don't really need a narrow boat to take them somewhere. They do have wings. Right, for anybody from abroad, this is what we call a lift bridge, and it tips up at one end to let boats go under it. If I were to cross the lift bridge, then I could go along the path there and turn right, and that would take me past the green space in Wolvercote, opposite, or on the other side of the road from the village hall. It's where the dog show was in the video that I made on the 22nd or so of June, Saturday, when they had a dog show on the village green. Conversely, of course, if I'd started from the village green, I could have gone alongside it in that direction, and then I'd have come along that path and then along here to the canal. It looks as though there's been a lot of building here. This used to be just fields, and I suspect it's university space that has been sold for development. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's why the report fly tipping notice and the signs about pedestrian priority over cycles have been put up. Ordinary users of the towpath don't matter, but when you're getting expensive housing development, the residents do. Maybe the principal. Right. In fact, I wouldn't mind betting that there is a road or a road in progress from the housing development and across to this bridge. And that people then cycle or will cycle along it to Oxford. And that path there, gosh, they have done a lot. I was going to say that path there joins the other one to the earlier lift bridge, but it obviously now is going to do rather more than that. It's going to join up with some road coming off whatever that is. So that will be another portion of the same university land, I suppose. Like I said before, not very long ago, the principle of the traffic planners is always that people have to adapt to noise rather than that engineering should be used to reduce it. Right, well, I've got a choice here, though I know what I'm going to do. That's the continuation of the canal, and that goes to Kidlington and beyond. If I were to go round there and then through some fields, I could eventually get to a village called Yarnton, and that's quite a nice place in its own right, quite a bit smaller than Kidlington, but I'm not going to do that today. I think there are some remains dating back several thousand years in Yarnton. That's what we saw earlier from this side. Yes, if you look at the entry signs, the village signs for Yarnton, they have a subtitle, something like 5,000 years of history. And I think some remains were found that date back to roughly that era. Hi. Well, I have to say, and I'm sorry to say it on one of my videos, but this is actually quite unpleasant. I just don't remember the noise being as loud last time. It might be that some trees... ouch, I got stung. Some trees shielding us from the road have been cut down. But this is the worst I've ever heard it. And I thought there'd been a bit of tidying up. I'm fairly sure this is a new permanent moorings. I would love to hear from viewers who are not in the UK, but who have canals of a similar size. Do you get the same sort of recreational life on yours? I've walked along the canal that goes from near Maastricht to Canas, I think it is, in Belgium. Can't remember the name. Is it the Albrecht Canal or the Albertus Canal? I think it begins with an A. And that was roughly the same size as this, though rather more sort of sterile in a way. But I don't remember the same profusion of narrow boats or other craft. In fact, I've done that walk several times. On one occasion, the heavens opened and I got thoroughly drowned. And then somebody picked me up and took me back to Maastricht. And we started chatting, and he turned out to be a friend of Fatboy Slim, which was quite interesting. Right, well this bridge brings us onto a road, and it's the road that goes to Woodstock. It passes the eastern edge of Yarnton and a village called Begb'ke, and the eastern edge of Bladen and Blenheim Palace and Woodstock. And it's perfectly possible to walk along it to all those places, because I've done so. On the other side of the road, further east, is Kidlington Airport, which you can look down on, because the west side is on a slightly higher. And there are buses that go to Oxf'd in one direction and to Woodstock in the other. Maybe one or two other places. And there's at least one nice pub. And that is new since I was last here, which wasn't very long ago. New trees going in and an approach to the other side of the main road. I'm not quite sure where the approach is supposed to end up. Maybe it was just for the purposes of getting tree planting equipment in. No, I don't think so. On the other hand, the towpath hasn't been upgraded in the same way that the towpath further back has, so maybe they're going to do that. They need to bring some equipment along. Now this is new. They've built a sort of mini village on the edge of the canal. That used to be a farm. There's another approach. And I'm wondering why they don't want people walking through the land. That's not normally an issue when you come into a housing estate. Interesting sky. And here's something. It smells very smoky, as if something's burning. Starmer ought to give out everybody free face masks. It would be good for COVID as well.
Thank you. Cheers.
musk, I think. Yes.
There's a wasp nest coming up.
Oh, is that on the Stratfield Brake bridge?
Literally, yeah, well, whatever this one coming up here is.
Yes.
Did you know already?
I knew about a concentration of wasps. I got
Yeah.
stung before, but thanks very much.
Yeah, it's literally so because I got stung on my leg really
Ooh.
badly, and then I went down and before I figure out what had happened,
Yes.
I got stung twice on my arm.
So do you think I should turn back?
Well, I'm going that way, but I know exactly where it is, and it's coming up in a minute.
Right.
And I'm just going to run through that.
You'll
one
be
section.
okay, I hope.
Well, I'm just going.
And your
I
dog.
came back that way
Yes.
after being stung, and I just ran.
Right.
So just be mindful because it
Yes.
starts around now when it all starts hooking over. Mm-hmm. So just be mindful.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks very
But
much.
if you see me run in a minute, then you'll know roughly where it is.
Well, good luck.
Thank you very much. After the bridge.
Right.
It's after the bridge.
After. Thanks. He's stopped, and I can see that he's thinking about what to do. He's let his dog loose. And he is going on. Right, well, I have an idea of where he meant, but I don't think I'm going to risk it because I've got quite a lot of stuff with me and it might be hard for me to get past without brushing against something that I don't want to brush against. So I'm going to go back to the road junction that I saw earlier and continue along there. That bridge, by the way, goes to a nature area called Stratfield Brake, which is a nice place to take a walk. Although it is true that the last time I used the bridge, a wasp dropped onto my spine, which wasn't very pleasant. So maybe there are lots of wasps around here. And it's worth noting that part of Stratfield Brake is closed because of a disease called acute oak decline, which is apparently caused by a bacterium which can be carried on shoes and clothing. So if you do go across, watch out for that and keep well away from any oak trees for fear of infecting them or bringing an infection back. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the road, and if I see anybody else, I'll warn them about the wasps too. I did also wonder whether there were any paths off to the side that would bypass those trees, because there are further north. There, for example, I'd like to know where that goes or went. And now we're back with the unfriendly people who don't want us walking through their housing estates. Okay, well, I'm going to use this approach road and get onto the road to Woodstock. I have to say that that has been one of my least favourite walks so far. The constant traffic noise, which, as I said before, is worse than I ever remember it. Colling Close, this is apparently called the Gables. And that's what it looks like from the outside. Right. Well, I can give a bit of orientation anyway. The canal is sort of sloping off in that direction. And we'll go to Kidlington. If I continue walking along here, then I get to paths to Kidlington on the right and to Yarnton on the left. Then a little further up, Begb'ke. Then on the right, Kidlington Airport. And then the junction for Blaydon on the left, and then more or less straight ahead Blenheim Palace and Woodstock. If when you get to the Blaydon roundabout you go through Blaydon and stop near a pub on the north side of the road, there's a path that leads into Blenheim Palace grounds. And there's a churchyard in Blaydon where I believe Winston Churchill is buried. And Blaydon is quite pretty. And if you go roughly sort of behind the last row of houses southwards, you can walk all the way back to Oxf'd through woods or through a path that roughly parallels the road. So there's a lot of nice walking and places to see. There are S3 bus stops along the road to Woodstock. Or of course to Oxf'd in the other direction. A little further on the right, there's a garden centre down one of the side lanes, and it has a cafe. That's one of the Yarnton village signs that I talked about. Welcome to Yarnton, 500 years of history. It looks as though they're growing something under glass there. And if they are, congratulations, considering the quality of raspberries and blueberries that I've had recently from Sainsbury's. Several of the blueberries in different packs have been mouldy, and so have some of the raspberries. It's high time we stopped importing them and having them waiting around at borders for ages. This looks like a new attempt to divide the pavement up into a pedestrian path and a bike path. And I wouldn't mind betting that it's partly for those new homes and partly perhaps for the development further back in that direction that I pointed out from the hotel. And I was wrong about this being crops. It's using light, sure, but not for photosynthesis. This must be a solar array farm, or whatever you call it. across the railway. And that may be a level crossing. They are doing a lot of tree planting. That goes to Kidlington and indeed does have a level crossing. The sign says road closed, but oh, that's just for a few nights, for one night. Green Lane. This is a decent pub to eat and drink at, or was last time I came. That goes to Yarnton and further on to Cassington, and there's a pub about half a mile on the left in Yarnton, unless it's closed since I last saw it, which I hope not. This one is obviously very much open, and I must say I wouldn't mind beer now. There's a thatched cottage view. Cromwell Cottage. Well, he did stay, Oliver Cromwell that is, he did stay in Old Marston, so maybe he stayed here as well. I'm not sure whether there's an official footpath across that field, but it looks as though there may be an unofficial one that goes across there and then to the right, ending up in either Kidlington on the canal or both. I think I did that once. I suppose prices of these houses must be lower than for the ones further away from the noise. That's quite a pretty little lane. Road crossings in this area are as rare as hen's teeth. So, while I'm not otherwise occupied, a bit of information about Kidlington. It's a very large village, as I said, 13,000 odd people, but it still likes to be called a village. From a practical point of view, it's got probably about 50 shops, including supermarkets, and it's the nearest settlement that isn't Oxf'd to the new station, the station on the Park and Ride that goes to Marylebone, the one run by Chiltern Railways. So I believe that's pushed up house prices a lot recently. Quite a bit of it is 20th century ribbon development along the main road that goes to a Sainsbury's at its south. In fact, it goes to the north end of Stratfield Brake, which is that nature reserve that I veered away from because of the wasp nest. So there's that ribbon development bit, and then there's an older village which is rather charming, and I recommend a wander around, sort of surrounding St Mary's Church. St Mary's Church can be seen from quite a long way away because it has a very tall spire, locally known apparently as Our Lady's Needle, Our Lady of course being Mary the Virgin. And that is very useful for orientation. There are lots of nice walks around Kidlington. You can go to Thrupp, which is a little village that's in roughly the same direction that I'm going actually, but a bit to the right, which has at least one pub, maybe two, the Jolly Boatman and there's something else to do with boats, and a very nice cafe called Annie's Tea Rooms, which is just over a bridge off the canal, and I recommend Annie's Tea Rooms. You can sit outside if the weather's good. So yes, there are walks to Thrupp, and a lot of them are through meadows, which are nice and sort of quite gentle. They're not very wild. St Mary's Church dates from 1220, but I believe there was something earlier there, built around about 1073. It's a Grade 1 listed building. And round to the side of it, there are some almshouses which were built in the mid-1600s. There's a police station not too far north from the Sainsbury's, and although you don't particularly want to look at a police station, it's interesting because there used to be a zoo there. Kidlington used to have a zoo, but only from 1931 to 1937. In 2018, apparently an elephant sculpture was made and put on one of the roundabouts to commemorate the zoo. And what can I say? The area around the church is worth visiting. Some of the walks start from the church grounds. Mill Street nearby is also worth a look. And apparently there's something constructed, or something designed anyway, something designed by the guy who designed Blenheim Palace, Van Brugh or Vanbrugh, which is in the front garden of Hampden Manor on Mill Street. It's a water closet, which I think resembles a sort of squarish pillar. Right, well this is the sort of end of Yarnton. There's a road there which goes off to the left and at a very shallow angle down to near the village sign. And on the right, this lane leads to the garden centre with its cafe and shops that I noted. There used to be a branch of the Works there, the cheap stationery place, and I've been here quite a few times just to buy sketchbooks, but I don't know whether the Works is still going there. Recently I picked mine up from the branch near Cowley Centre. Oh, and if you continue along that lane, then you get to Kidlington, and you get to the north end of the main street near where most of the supermarkets are. One very useful thing about Kidlington is Exeter Hall. There's a pharmacy there called Jardine's, and they did a lot of the COVID vaccinations. So when I was getting those done, I tended to go to Exeter Hall because it's quite light and airy. Staff are very efficient. As I said, the land rises to the west, and you can look down a little bit on the airport, which is coming up on my right. Oh well, no history now. Oh, another useful thing about the church in Kidlington is that between roughly mid-May and mid-September they do teas on Sunday, homemade cakes and tea or coffee, and the cakes are really very good. This is, well, I don't think it used to be called Begb'ke Hill. I'm not sure it used to be called anything. And it is now a part of a university science park. Which I presume is that. There's somebody else who thinks it's fun to scream at vloggers. That time I got something in my eye. I'm hoping it wasn't a wasp. Now, is that I think that is called the Royal Sun.
What car you're in? What car is it?
That's Fernhill Road, which is part of Begb'ke. You can go down to the end there and then turn left, go up to the end and then turn right, and there's a lovely little footpath through some fairly wild grounds that then takes you back south and into Kidlington. I recommend that one. The main problem when you get to Kidlington may be finding your way out of the housing estates, because the paths obviously will come in at the west end of those. But if you head more or less due east, you'll probably hit a main road sooner or later. It's possible, I do apologise if so, that this is the road I meant rather than the one further south, that if you turn left at the end of this one, you go up to the end and then come to the footpath I mentioned. Probably they meet anyway. Well, I've not seen them do that before. Right, if I had carried on along the canal, I would have got to two bridges and two paths from them that lead into Kidlington. And then, if I'd gone on a bit further, I'd have started seeing industrial buildings around me, business park size rather than big northern factory size. And I would have ended up at the other end of this, which is Langford Lane. So the canal skims the far corner of Langford Lane, and I'm pretty sure that if you go over a bridge you see it. So that gives a reference point. I'm going to end the video shortly because I'm running out of battery, and as I say, this was a bit unexpected. My original plan was to walk to Langford Lane, or as far as the battery would take me, by canal, but because of the wasp's nest, I went for safety, got onto the road to Woodstock, and I've been walking along it ever since, and there are various paths back on the right to Kidlington, and incidentally on the left to Begb'ke and Yarnton. And just before I end, the last thing I want to show you, I don't actually know whether you're allowed to film at airports in the UK. I hope so. The airport is over there, and I can't actually see any easy way of showing it unless I can find a break in the hedge, though I can just about see airport buildings. There used to be a footpath through the middle of the airport, actually crossed one of the runways. That's been diverted, and they no longer allow you to walk through the airport, which I think is a bit of a shame. When there was a footpath there, you were just warned that you had to be careful about planes flying overhead. Okay, so that is Kidlington Airport. I'll see you next time.